So she said, I guess I could get up. And I said, all right, because the minute you start walking, you're going to be down the street and that street might take a turn and there's rainbows and unicorns going crazy. You don't know what's ahead in your life. Don't be afraid. Don't give up. Fight like heck. So of course I read every book I could read about microbiotic dieting, mind over matter with Pac-Man, things eating cancer in my body. I mean, you name it, I did it. That's where you get that grit from. I think that you go, I'm not dying. I am going to fight like heck. And I fought every step of the way. I do remember feeling that fight. There was no way I was going. And I started helping others. I was on a national call list for Dana-Farber, American Cancer Society. I did all these things because I wanted to try and give that fight to others to say, there's no reason to give up.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Live in the Rhythm, where we have honest conversations about mindset, communication, and purposeful living, all to help you transform your life from the inside out. Because life, it's not a race. I found that out the hard way. It's a dance. So we're going to help you to find your rhythm and live it. And today we are talking to a very dear friend of mine, Shelly Malone. She is a woman whose life is a masterclass in resilience, faith, and gratitude. Shelly's a seasoned real estate broker, a former educator, and a beloved force in her community. With a career spanning over 30 years, she's known for her deep insight, unwavering integrity, and a wit that will put people at ease, even during life's toughest transitions. But beyond her impressive career, it's her personal story that's going to leave you so inspired today. At just 30 years old, with 5.5 months pregnant, Shelley was diagnosed with cancer and given 1 year to live. She lost everything, her child, her job, and her marriage. But what really carried her through was her unshakable faith in God and a vow to live each day doing His work. Gratitude really became a rhythm reset for her, helping her rebuild her life from the inside out. Shelley's story is one of courage, conviction, and finding purpose through pain, and I am so delighted to share her with you today. And we're going to talk about grit, grace, and gratitude. So Shelley, welcome, my dear friend. So good to see
Thank you,
you.
Pam. Nice to see you. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me on.
Boy, I tell you, we were never promised a life without struggle. And man, oh man, you've had more than your share of them. I definitely want to get into your story. But let's talk about gratitude, because that has been such a foundation for you. And a lot of times we hear attitude of gratitude, that's all great. But beyond being a really nice phrase, tell us about how you came to actually embody gratitude, Shell.
Now that's a good story, but a long story. But I've always had God in my life. I just was brought up that way, grandparents and parents, etc. But you never know how much you're gonna need Him until you need Him. I used to I went to St. Anselm's College and I used to go to this place called the Precious Blood, which is a monastery. And I used to pray for good grades. And I said, that's when I learned that God had a sense of humor. And I said, I would sit there and say, I know. If I only went to class, I wouldn't need to come here and pray for good grades. So that was the start of more of the personal relationship that I built with him so that I could talk to him about the important things that were going through my life at the time. So, the no one knows what it feels like until you lose a child, or nobody knows what it feels like until you're told you have a certain amount of time to live. It was a struggle. There was a lot of humor in my life because of my mother, and part of who I am is a little bit of humor there. But he never left me. And through those days in the hospital alone, I had him in different ways. I used to have a priest come in every week. I had my grandmother on speed dial who I would be reading the Bible saying, okay, I don't understand this. And she'd say, I'll take it to my Bible study this week. And I mean, and all these regular things that you would expect somebody to be doing at the time. But there were so many things that were happening and it was bringing me closer to him. As the time went on, I was living and surviving, and I would say, I started doing more for others and stopped thinking about myself. So I started driving cancer patients to their treatments, but I was also going to my own. They didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I had a story of a 85-year-old woman, and I used to pick her up on Tuesdays, and um, she would get in the car sometimes and say, they taken away my cigarettes and all these different things. And I'm thinking, well, she's 85 and maybe she was 90. It didn't really matter in this story, but every week she began to get dressed a little more. She would have a bow in her hair. She was a little lighter on her feet, and
Yeah.
boy, did that change that I saw the impact of how God was putting me in front of someone else's life. And I was grateful for living and being able to do this for someone else. Then about the third or fourth time I picked her up, bought her a pack of cigarettes because I thought wants to smoke. I didn't even smoke at the time. And I would even let her smoke in the car. I mean, what did I care? What was my life going to be any different if I had a little smoke smell in the car than if I didn't? I had her with me. She was happy and she was engaging with life, and she was certainly impacting mine. Those are the ways that I felt grateful for being around to be able to help others, but be grateful for what I had and who I was. Boy, I learned more during that time to really brace me for another 20 or 30 years of being grateful in life and doing for others. And I couldn't even imagine not having him in my life. You know, it's because every day he's my best friend. I talk to him and I say, this is 33 years now that I've been alive. You know,
Praise
I
God.
had a doctor at Brigham and Women's who called me up at home one night, which was unusual. And he said, I can't stop thinking about you. You're 30 years old. You've lost everything. And I know one thing, that you want a child. I know that you want that more than anything. And he said, I have a buddy who's opening up a shop in Brookline, Massachusetts, and I made an appointment. I want you to go. And I said, okay. And I had never heard of this. Let's go back 33 years. I'd never heard of this process or this kind of place. And it was called Boston IVF. And I said, I'll go.
You have so much grit. When you take us back for a moment, when you were given 1 year to live and told that you'd never have children again, here you were having had just lost your child and given this expiration date, if you will. I mean, I couldn't even fathom what that was like. Share a little bit about that. It's like, where did you get that grit? And if you can take us back there a little bit.
Sure. I do remember my mother being devastated and worse than even I was. I mean, as far as my being given a year to live, I was devastated by the loss of my child. So I remember saying to my mother, I was sleeping on the couch at her house, and my mom had made a bed next to me on the floor, and she had her hand on me all night long, the first night. And she said, I had to hear your breathing. I had to
Mm,
know
yeah.
that you were okay. Yeah, it's pretty powerful, in my opinion, as I look back now. And anyway, I said to her, I don't want you to be afraid because I'm not afraid. I'm just not
Mm,
ready. That's all. I'm just not ready to go, but I'm okay. He took the fear away, and maybe I
mm.
prayed for that, but it was not fear. It was, I just don't want to go. I think I had a lot more dancing left to
Well,
do, and I wasn't ready to get off that dance floor. But I guess there's a story I tell my daughter. Something horrific happened in her life, and she is in the Marine Corps, and she couldn't go to counseling because she wouldn't get a top secret clearance. So anyway, I said to her, "Well, it's okay to lay down on the ground. It's okay to lay on the kitchen floor. It's okay, but what are you gonna do then?" She goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, what are you gonna do when you're done laying on the kitchen floor?" And she said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, there's gotta be something." And she goes, "I guess I'll get up." I said, "Well, do you wanna get up now or do you wanna wait a month? Or do you wanna, what's the choice here?" And so she said, I guess I could get up. And I said, all right, because the minute you start walking, you're going to be down the street, and that street might take a turn, and there's rainbows and unicorns going crazy. You don't know what's ahead in your life.
Yeah.
but don't be afraid. Don't give up. Fight like heck. So of course I read every book I could read about microbiotic dieting, mind over matter with Pac-Man, things eating cancer in my body. I mean, you name it, I did it. That's where you get that grit from. I think that you go, I'm not dying. I am going to fight like heck. And I fought every step of the way. I do remember feeling that fight and that
Yeah.
I was no way I was going. And I
Yeah.
started helping others. I was on a national call list for Dana-Farber, American Cancer Society. I did all these things because I wanted to try and give that fight to others to say there's no reason to give up.
We all have different circumstances that we go through in our lives, and sometimes we can pull ourselves up from the bootstraps and get in the fight. And other times, like you said about your daughter Hannah, is like, are you going to stay on the floor? Listen, I've had many moments of boogers in the Bible, as I say, down on the floor of my walk-in closet and just having this horrific time. But what I've also learned is that when we allow ourselves to feel the feels, because I couldn't even fathom what you being in your shoes, Shelley, where you lost your child and then get this diagnoses all at one time. It's just like one of those, my God, literally, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, what do you do?
Mhm.
Where we have to be able to feel the feels. And I grew up, and I think you know this too, is like in a family of suck it up, don't let them see you
Yes.
sweat. Those are great mottos, but doesn't help us to build resiliency in life, to get that grit, to fight. Because if we don't feel those feelings, one of the things that I've been learning through my church and my pastors is that when we get teary eyed, when we well up, when we have those feelings, don't immediately shove them down, because we're denying ourselves the process, like to be able to have them come and go. And then they get stuck in our body. But when we get teary eyed and cry, that is the language of our heart that is telling us that something needs to be healed, and have empathy with ourselves. So when you got
Yeah.
your horrific news, I can only imagine. I mean, I would be a freaking hot mess and crumble to pieces. Because you said that you had a fight, but was it right away? Did you
No.
like the first? Because a lot of people are like, what do I do first? You know, okay, great, I'm a hot mess, or I'm calling all my friends, or, and in your case, it's you go to God,
Yes.
go to the one who
I did
created.
not. I couldn't call anybody. I had my sister-in-law call all of my friends and say she doesn't wanna see anybody. She doesn't wanna talk to anybody. She just wants you to keep her in your prayers, and it's a really difficult time, and that's it. I just hunkered down and I know that the beginning it was going to the doctors, and I remember my dad saying when it was the guy that runs Dana-Farber, and he said, "Well, what do you want?" My dad said, "I want a cure, you know? I want her to live."
Yeah,
And he said, "If it was my daughter, this is what I would do." And so, you know, what you're doing is you're reading, you're researching. This is my dad. He got right into it. And like,
all
so
right,
what are
yeah.
we going to do? How are we going to get, her alive? How are we going to keep her alive? And so what are we going to do from here? And that starts to get you into the fight. You have to have a plan, right? I mean, if you're going to take it that way. I mean, I had a plan with him all along, but
And that's it. What I hear you saying, Shelley, was like, even though the doctor said, and I got the chills on this one, even though the doctor said, this is what you have, right? You didn't accept it. No, I'm not. That's not me. I refuse to accept that. I know there's another way. I am not ready. I'm not done. Like you said, I got more dancing to
nope,
do.
that's
And I
right.
think that that's a big part of it is that when we can take that control from our attitude and actions to go, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And like you said, you got a plan. How was that helpful for you?
Some people in our country lost their way with God.
Big time.
And I never, luckily, lost my faith because my family had brought me up to say, tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow's a new day. Always rely on him. He's not always going to give it to you when you want it or how you want it but he delivers, and just have faith. Faith. Don't ever give up. And so I think I funneled down all of that. And that's when I said, well, this is the time I guess I'm supposed to be using all this. I can't be asking for good grades now
Yeah.
because they won't matter. So I guess that's how uh, I I ran with it and I relied on him and I talked to him and I said, "This is your time too to help me because I've been sticking by you all along." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's get through this. And how he could have taken that, how that all this horrible stuff could happen to me. I had been a good person my whole life. You all go through, everybody goes through that. That's a normal process. That's but I must have been on 15 prayer lists across the country. I kept thinking, Mary Smith in Iowa is praying for me. So I was grateful. I was grateful from day one of this journey, that there were people out there willing to put some stranger in their life. That's the whole beauty of all of it,
And it's the power
is
of
that
prayer. It is the
it's
power of
unbelievable.
prayer. Yeah, because God, what you
Unbelievable.
mentioned though, you mentioned something, how could he do this? God doesn't make bad things happen. He just does it.
Exactly.
He uses all things together for the good of those who love him. He will use all situations. And I remember, previously you shared a story that I think is really powerful. You said, I dug into my faith. So for those who don't really understand what that is, it's faith, belief in something you cannot see. What did that look like for you, Shelley, when you say you dug into your faith at this time? Share a little bit about that. Were there signs? What
Yes.
helped you along the way?
One of the biggest signs that I remember, because I needed a sign that I was going to be okay. So I had had this big lump on the back of my head for a long time, and I never really thought about it or did anything about it. And it wasn't part of my cancer that I know of. So it was the 12th of December I was diagnosed. The 19th of December I lost my child, and on the 22nd of December, imagine you can remember these dates, right? I had my first chemotherapy treatment, and on Christmas Eve at midnight mass, I'm sitting there saying, "Gosh, you got it. Let me know I'm going to be okay because this is scary stuff, and
Yeah.
I am really needing you now." And I remember putting my hand on the back of my head and the lump was gone. And I mean gone. So I grabbed my husband's hand, I put it up on my head and you could see him going, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Like this is unbelievable. That's just real. That just happened." I mean, it just happened. It was that was the start of that journey. You know what I mean? That was really powerful for me. The
Yeah.
signs were powerful for me. I knew he was with me and he was showing me, have faith, I'll walk beside you. We're going to get through this. I just felt like that the whole time, you
Yeah.
know? And I, like I said, I used a lot of humor through it all. So I was like, is this outfit okay to wear?
Well, it's funny you say that, but God gave you all your attributes and your talents. And of course he has a sense of humor, right?
Right.
And this is the whole thing, is when you develop this relationship, he's not all brimstone and fire. And when we understand it's a relationship, is a two-way street. It's not, of course, I used to, have those begging prayers and almost like a transactional thing. But after going through a lot of transitions myself, you learn that it's like, oh no, he's right there with you all the time. And when you can understand that it is a two-way conversation, and to be able to listen and look for signs. Because I used to say to people, how do you know? Do you hear him? Because I don't understand how he shows up for everyone. And what a beautiful demonstration that you just shared with us, that that was a clear sign. There was no
Clear
other
sign.
explanation as to how that could have gone, because you just had it, right? So
Yeah.
the
It was incredible.
yeah.
That that my life has been incredible. And it's because of him.
Tell us what other signs that you've had along the way.
I think I can't even think of I had so many. That's the weirdest thing is, I mean, I could sit here and go all these little things, but they were so many of them, and my family was all my father's very he's who gave me my faith. I mean, he really was a dedicated Catholic. I mean, I hate to use one type or my mom wasn't but his I guess his faith was so unwavering. He prayed every single night. And I would sit there and go, "How does he do this? Like, how does he?" This is a young child. And he would just,
Right.
and he told me stories about his praying when he was in Vietnam and, different things like what got him through. And that's how I think I went through my life growing up was okay, and I was grateful to have my father give me that gift. My grandmother was totally involved in her church. She had the toughest life of anybody I know, and yet she was always happy every day.
Mm,
And she
joy of
would
the
go
Lord.
out and sell clothes out of her car for money to raise for her church. So when they needed $20,000 to put a new roof on, guess who got that money for them? So I got to say this. This is how this is God. So at her funeral, the minister said she was a disciple and she was 100% a disciple. And the place was packed. Now, she was 93 when she passed. It was
Um,
out the door. Hundreds and hundreds of people came because she impacted their lives in so many ways that all revolved around God.
yeah.
And she gave up her life for the service that she could contribute. So that church was always needing money, and she was always finding a way to raise it. So many things. And so I guess, I mean, I still have signs that when I get worried, it might come back. It will never come back. But I mean, if I worry that I don't feel good, I ask for a sign, and I feel like, what he says to me? Why don't you go get a sign? Why don't you make a sign? Why don't you go do something for somebody else instead of sitting here worrying about yourself? And so guess what? I get off my, bottom and out the door I go and I go do something for somebody else. And that's my sign that says, all right, I'm lucky enough to be here to be able to go out and do something for somebody. I've been given a
Yeah.
life for 33 more years for a reason. Make it worth something. Don't
Yeah.
take advantage of I'm alive, I'm just still living the dance. Go out and dance with somebody else, you
Yeah,
know?
and not take it for granted for sure. And I think the power of our testimony, and this is why it's so, so, so important. A lot of the times, as I mentioned growing up, I was taught to have two different personas. The public persona is like Patty Perfect, and then the private one was more like, party pants and having fun. But on the other hand, so it's this certain persona that is projected like I have it all together, but we don't. And life is and if
Mhm.
we are supposed to be sharing our testimony out there. The tests that we go through in our lives then become our testimony. And they also say your mess is your message. But if we're keeping quiet and not sharing that with others, we are actually shutting off ways in which God can use us to get to other people because it's not always about us. And what you just shared is like the grace that you have graciously going through your treatment and your difficult times that you graciously were picking up other people to go to their chemo and serving others. And wow, what a fulfillment that is and how that fills you up. What difference did that make for you, Shelley, personally?
It definitely gave me more of a direction. Like I couldn't have 8 kids. I couldn't have 4 kids. I always knew that when my daughter was grown and on her way, it was going to make room for me to do more for others. And so I feel like that's my purpose. And so I'm still in the process of working, but I'm looking at some directions that are going to bring me out to the community. And there's some ways that it he I get things put in front of me that lead me to believe this might be a path that I'm going to go. And I'm so those might be signs too. But sometimes just different there's some great community things out there that when there's a disaster or things that you can join to go and help. Samaritan's Purse is kind of something that I have a great interest in.
Mm.
and it's going out and helping people during crisis and whatever you can do. But even if it's just in your own community. So I guess I found through all this that I was, built to help others. I enjoy it. It comes from deep inside. It does fill me up. And I can't with only having had one child, I won't be lonely the rest of my life where I feel, she's gone in the Marine Corps and they have her now. I don't have that loneliness that I first had. You know what I mean? I'm using his ways to help me and help others because it does help me. So it's I am but I'm grateful to be able to do those things. I'm grateful for every single minute of the day. I can't tell you. Yes, there are bad days still. You know what I mean?
Of
There's
course.
there's things, right, and not to get into those things, but there are bad things all the time. I mean, hard days. But I'm grateful to feel how hard a day it is. Do
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Because I'm
Yeah.
still here. And my doctor is world renowned in my kind of cancer. And he said, there is no reason, none whatsoever, for you to be here. Do you understand that? Because I thanked him for saving my life. And he said, I didn't save your life. You. I've never seen anybody with a will to live the way you have it.
Yes, because with doctors and they go, wow, right? I imagine you've shared with your doctor not only your grit and your will to live because he saw how you and your dad and your family were continuing fighting. When you gave the grace to God, when you gave God the glory for all of that, did that shift your doctor at all? I'm curious.
I think he already knew how, because he used to come in my hospital room and see me with the priest. He saw me on the phone talking to my grandmother about some passage in the Bible, or you know what I mean? He saw
Yeah.
it in me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he said, you have a will to live that I've just never seen with anybody. And I think he knew without us having to talk about God, but
Mm.
he said, I didn't save you. To me was amazing when he said that, that I realized I had the power too, that I did have the power and I could do these things. And so 10 years later, my parents and I, they were with me at every doctor's appointment through all of it. When he said to us, you're cured. And we were talking in a conversation and my dad said, what did you just say? And he said, you're cured. You will never, ever, ever get this kind of cancer back again. And I mean, I literally fell on the floor. I just
Mm.
could not believe that no matter how many years of praying that that would ever happen, that I would ever hear that, you know? So it just the people I met through my life, the people that he put in front of me to help me get where I am today, every one of them I'm grateful for
Yeah.
because they all played a part. They all had a part in my life. And I mean, I became really good friends with my doctor as well. And, we we talked about his kids, my daughter, I mean, he would say, "I can't believe, look at you. You know, look at you. You're thriving. You've got this beautiful daughter and on and on." Yes, I lost a child. Yes, I lost my marriage, but things still change and happen for you and you still have to take joy in all of those things and I do not harp on all the other things that happened in my life. I don't ever go back because I'm
Yeah.
going forward.
Right.
I'm going ahead because that's where that's where the party is. You know what I mean? That's where the sun is. And I want to go where the sun is. I want to be going forward, living up positive joy in my life. I just want to be going
Yeah.
that way.
Such a testament to grit, grace, and gratitude for sure, because the way you've lived your life, our life is a testimony to others. Just the way we live it gives other people hope. People are watching all the time. I know over the years you've given me such great inspiration and hope just by the way you live your life, Shell. You are unapologetic and very transparent about things. And I think that that is so refreshing and so welcome, needed, so needed these days because people are going through some hard times. And if we hide it,
Oh,
we can't, God can't heal what we're not going to reveal if we pretend that everything's fine, right? Our F word is fine. How you doing? Fine. And it's not so fine. Can't help you if you're fine. Yeah. And so with you, the way you have lived your life has been such an inspiration to so many others. And I recall there was such a period of time, maybe 20 years between, we grew up together and then we hadn't reconnected. But then I saw you on social media and what you would put out there was so inspirational all the time. And I was like, gosh, I knew there was some way that I was like, there's a story behind this. I know we grew up together and that there was just such incredible inspiration coming. I was like, I knew there was a story behind all of that. And for you to have continued joy and peace, where I love where you said, I knew I'm not ready. And when we have peace in our heart, despite external circumstances, I have learned that I know that's my confirmation from God, that I'm in the right direction. Despite it could look like a hot mess on the outside and people are going, what the heck are you thinking? And you know in your heart of hearts that you have peace about what you're doing or where, how you're navigating your circumstances, then you know that's the right thing. That is your confirmation.
I remember thinking, my friends probably think I'm nuts. I'm doing all this macrobiotic dieting. I'm talking about God all the time and everything. And I didn't care.
Yeah.
This was my journey. I had to go through it. It was what was helping me get up out of bed every day, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then that's why I became so open, because I too grew up with don't let anybody know what the real stuff is and all that, and
Dirty
just keep it
laundry.
in the family. And I just one day realized I help others by being real. And I learned that through my calls with Dana Farber when helping those people and the American Cancer Society. And I thought, just be real.
Yeah.
Tell these people I'm afraid to, or, but, or whatever your thing was, just don't be afraid to tell them, but tell them how you get that strength within to go forward.
Yeah.
Tell them, we all need a cheerleader. We all need one. And I don't know why life doesn't come with a cheerleader. You know what I mean? Because I sure as heck could have, I mean, probably my parents were my cheerleaders.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to dig deep and you got to find your own cheerleader and you got to go with it. But if I can do it for others,
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. And I remember a few times when I was asked to have someone come over for lunch, kind of help them get the fight in them. And it broke my heart because I already knew that they didn't and couldn't, and they passed within a few months. And it broke my heart. But I can't breathe life into you. You've got you've got to breathe on your own, but I can help you get through,
You're
through some of the dark days. So I always said to people, use me, you know,
yeah.
tell me I can't help you if you don't tell me. Tell me what you're worried about, what you're afraid of. What is it that's holding you back from finding your way or
Yeah.
finding a way just to find some peace, you know?
And that's why the mindset makes all the difference in the world because you had a fight and you knew not only in your heart, but in your mind, you were like, I am not done. And so the mindset helps out tremendously because, as you mentioned, and I know that we've all experienced people in our lives who can be either Debbie Downers or less than. A lot of the times it happens because of whatever they've dealt with in their life that they haven't really come to terms with. But on the other hand, you have experienced you won your mindset, you were fighting and then giving hope to others and you could tell and you wanted to help them, but you can tell that if their mindset was there and if we give up, right? We're never stuck unless we stop. And when people are giving up, by the way you live your life, Shelley, gives people hope.
Well, that's something I can give, I hope. You know what I mean? I always just want to help other people
Yeah.
in any way that I can, and I know that my family is were big impacts in my life on that. Always they were always helping in bringing people in to live at our house, and this guy is he he lost his parents, his brother died as a state trooper. I mean, he lived at our house. My mom said I couldn't wait for him to leave because he was breaking everything in my home. I mean, it's funny, but she was like, and now he comes back every year. He lives overseas. He flies back to see mom. And, I see that and I see that one year of giving to somebody else changed a whole trajectory of their life. That someone cared and loved and didn't leave them when they were down.
Yeah.
And that was God lifting him up and with using someone else in their life. You don't know what he's doing to help us, giving us doctors and they're educated people that can figure this out. And you have to just have that belief
Yeah.
that this was all the plan, having and certainly I didn't know what the plan was going to end up with. I'm grateful that the one thing I wanted was a child.
Mm.
That's all I wanted, you know. If
And what a
anyway,
blessing she is, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
The one or two words describes your rhythm of life right now.
Keep swimming. I'm just kidding. Um, I I would say gratitude is every day present. It's right on the forefront of my life. And so, if nothing else, I'm grateful, but I'm always searching for what more can I do, and that's where I said to you, I'm not done working, but I'm getting really close. And so, I'm still finding my way to help others. But
Yeah.
but I think he gives me that desire
Yeah.
to want to help others. And it has nothing to do with I have had everything I could ever imagine in life.
Mm,
Everything, everything.
blessing.
None of that matters. What matters is the gifts that you can still give to others. My path through life has taken such a journey, and where I am today is nowhere near where I was at the beer parties when I was 17 years old, and I didn't think of anybody but myself.
Yeah.
But I look at the journey and it's still going and I'm just trying to make it even better. Like, okay, how much more can I do to
Yeah.
help and do and there is a bigger plan for me. I just don't know. I'm finding my way. I'm getting to, my plan is still continuing.
Yeah. And to hold on to
Anyway,
that, which helps us through. Our strength comes from him. I tell you, some days I don't have the
absolutely.
strength and I go, whoo, give me something to hold on to. Yeah. So, Shelley, is there one final piece of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Never give up. Never, ever, ever. There's always enough to get and grab onto. So never give up.
Something to ponder when you think about Shelley's story. Where could gratitude help you shift from survival to strength? Because remember, life, it is not a race, it's a dance. So find your rhythm and live it. Until next time, if you enjoyed this, I ask you to share, subscribe so you don't miss any other episodes, and we'll see you next time.